Happy St. Patty's Day, all you Mick bastards. This is part one. I'm really happy with myself with that intro. So this is part one of a two-part series that I got cooked up for the celebration of a free Ireland. Mm, mm, music to my ears. So today I got brother against brother in tragic, bloody civil war. We got The Wind That Shakes the Barley that came out in 2006 with The Banshees of Inisherin that came out in 2022. So as you can see, I picked this one up from a public library. Walked over there one day after work. I was too cheap to pay the streaming fee. So I figured, you know what, let's check Canopy. Wasn't on there. I was like, let's check my local library. It was there. There was two of these on the shelf. Walked right in, and I was like, giving myself a little pep talk as I was walking there. I was like, hey, you're gonna walk in. You're gonna get Banshees of Inisherin. That's why you're there, and you're gonna walk out. I walked out with like literally like an armful of books, but I walked home and it's like a 25-minute walk. So it was like the most uncomfortable walk of my life. Um, and carrying all these books, but I got a good stack of them. I couldn't help myself. I was just there and they all caught my eye. It just happened. I walked out and I was like, what happens? Like, smash cut to being like, what happened? I was just supposed to be walking out with this. I'm not complaining. I'm really excited to read all those books and get to it. But Banshees of Inisherin. So that's a good tip for all of you cinephiles out there, is that if you are too cheap to pay the streaming fee or you're too broke or whatever you got going on, no judgment here. Um, Check Canopy. That's the public library's app. I've discussed that before on here because I just love it so much. That's for free if you have a public library card, which you can get for free. You can even sign up for that online. Um, and so that's the app. If it's not on there, check your local library because they have a bunch of DVDs that you can check out for free. And they usually have a pretty good selection. So yeah, that's a good suggestion. And it's so funny. The Banshees of Inisherin, the year it came out in 2022. I was so excited from all the trailers and everything. That's what I wanted to do for my birthday. I was like, I'm gonna go see Banshees of Inisherin for my birthday. What a birthday gift it was! Had so much fun. It's a little bit of a sad movie, but I did have a good time. It was everything I wished it would be. Um, and great birthday. I usually have some pretty good stuff. My birthday's in November, so I usually have some pretty good stuff that comes out around that time. So movies usually, just filled to the gills with good options there. Um, so in The Wind That Shakes the Barley, we got 1920s Ireland that's plagued by the brutal black and tans. And Damien, Cillian Murphy in the movie, is this med student who's gonna go off to London to finish up his education. And then these, repressive black and tans come to his town, and he is kind of like, forced to seek solace in the welcoming arms of the IRA. Oh, the IRA just so conjures up warm and fuzzies, doesn't it? My Irish blood, it does. Don't you dare. You bigots. Um, and so, one of the things that I want to say about the title of The Wind That Shakes the Barley is that barley became like a really interesting symbol during this time for Ireland. The title of this movie comes from a song. There's a lot of poems. There's a lot of things like kind of that used barley as a symbol because it continued to grow every spring amidst the boot stomping British forces, just like the resistance. So Ireland was fighting for her independence. I mean, she's been fighting for independence for hundreds of years, okay, but more in recent times, over 100 years. And let me just preface this by saying, like, I'm not a historian. I am Irish by blood, not by land. I was born and bred in America, as you can probably tell from the accent. I wish I had an Irish accent, but I do not. I was not born there, unfortunately. But being Irish by blood, being born and bred in America as an Irish American person, it's like you could say, like, my soul was really forged with this rebellion against the crown. So I'm grateful for that. Um, and we've been working out a little bit of racial prejudice in this household right now. As I've mentioned Bugley before, my English bulldog. I kind of have to remind him who's putting the food in his bowl a little bit here. He barked throughout the entirety of both of these films, and it was just like the Irish tunes really were like enraging his colonialist blood, I think. I don't know what was going on. So we're fighting our own little kind of domestic civil war here right now. We're working through those prejudices that he has. And he's going to learn, that it's like, I'm not going to succumb. I'm not going to succumb to your brutish tactics, Bugley. And if you keep them working up, I'm going to continue to sing the songs of Irish protest even louder. And there will be no treats before bed. Okay? So the film covers two pivotal moments in the fight for Irish independence. We got the War of Independence, and then we got the Irish Civil War. And Ken Loach's idea was like, not only how do we defeat imperialist rule, but what do we put in place afterwards? And the latter is very much like the spirit of the film. And Ken Loach is a proud and staunch leftist, and we are lucky to have such a steadfast soldier. He's someone to me that like really combines genuine empathy with political ideology. And as an artist, he lets his heart guide his politics. And I really feel like, you know what, like that's exactly the way that it should be. And I feel like in this era we got, sides that are devoid of empathy, and then we got sides that it's sort of like this abstract empathy that's kind of become all the rage. So it's kind of really rare to meet someone who's really authentic in his approach. Because he's somebody that really sees like identity is beyond skin deep. What's your character? Who are you? Are you willing to die for your cause? Are you willing to be tied to a fucking post and shot? Are your grand words like your own personal validation? Um, that's what I love about the film. Damien is the embodiment of dedication. When he has to put a bullet through Chris Riley's heart, it's like this boy that he watched grow up, and you can really see like Chris's seditious actions are weighing as much on Damien's heart as they are Chris Riley's at this moment. Um, and what I think is a really interesting thing, what is a really interesting thing about this film, but just about revolutions and revolts in general, is like there's a lot of murky areas where it's sort of like, was this a righteous action? But the thing that you cannot forget about revolution is that um, every person at the end of your barrel, sorry, has you at the end of theirs. And consequences cost lives. Freedom's paid in blood, with the understanding that it might be your own one day. And if you don't stand wholeheartedly with each concession, your foundation is just bound to crumble. Um, and I think that highlighting the court scene is like another scene that really stands out to me, because I think it's just such an exceptional choice to include in this film. Because, it's like I remember like reading some review, or maybe it was like Ken Loach talking about it. Um, and he was just like, I'm not really concerned too much with historical accuracy. It's like he wants to get to the ecstatic truth, right? So it's like this court scene is like the epitome of that. And we have Damien and his best buddy Dan, and they're sort of upholding this court's decision against this loan shark that's like leeching off of this old woman. And then we have his own brother, Teddy, who's the one who got him into the IRA to begin with. And Teddy's kind of arguing, like, look, if this loan shark, he provides the IRA's weapons, man. He provides the funding for that. So if he goes to jail, there goes our funding. Um, and the court's decision kind of like becomes this really dividing factor of like theory versus direct action, and it splits these two even before the ceasefire and the treaty are signed, which those caused the brothers to shift sides then once again. But Dan's words are like tinnitus through the second half of the film, when he says, "It's easy to know what you're against, quite another to know what you're for." Um, and I think that's something that's it's brought down some of the most uh, historically relevant revolutions and revolts throughout the sands of time. So I have my little pet revolutions and revolts. I mean, we all do, as we all do. Please comment yours down below in the comments. We'll connect. What's your favorite revolution or revolt? Let's see all my Haitian revolution heads out there, which that should be a movie. I can't even believe it's so cinematic. It's so primed for a movie. I can't believe that's never been a fucking movie before. It's just like a fucking incredible story. That's a little pet revolution of mine. I have a ton of books about it. That it's like when I was a teenager, whatever, you get into these things. So it's like, but that's still one of those most incredible ones. But to me, what stands out with that quote that, like Dan says, it's easy to know what you're against, quite another to know what you're for. Like, kind of the French Revolution really comes to mind the most, because it's like, sure, the war must be won, right? But when does what you wish to stand for commence? When is what you're going to put in place afterwards, once you've won, come into play? And this becomes a division that ultimately gets Damien killed. And it's a civil war that not only in this film pits brother against brother. This is, real life. Um, and I think that there are a lot of great great points to be led, just being Irish by blood and not by land, and not being a Republic of Ireland patriot. Maybe I should not step into this fight, but I will. My blood, coursing through my veins is telling me to do it. But I think that, the thing is, like, there's a lot of good questions. Like, is a ceasefire enough? Like, did we come this far just to get this far? And there are those that still believe, like, the Republic of Ireland are de facto puppets to British rule. And it's like, it kind of like brings up the same question, like, can there be true freedom without the true will of the people? And is it possible outside of heartfelt parable? Um, and when it comes down to it, yes, okay, like a collective is only as strong as its weakest individual, though. So, to paraphrase not a radical man by any standards, but an Irishman and an American Irishman nonetheless, ask not what your rebellion can do for you, but what you contribute to its success. What ideas are behind your actions? Like, are you in this to win this? Are you going to succumb to half measures and band aids and vapid words of change? How strong is your will? Which side are you on, boys? Ever since I wrote that, this song's been stuck in my head like all day. Like, which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Um, and that's the one that shakes the barley, which leads me to the Banshees of Inisherin, which takes all these ideas to their absolute absurdity. We got this small Irish island so divorced from humanity that there's only two people pure enough of heart to actually have enough of it to get broken. Um, and okay, I'm with you. You don't need to be so open that you're dripping blood across the pastoral trail to the town pub, but you shouldn't be punished for it either. And poor Podrick is deemed dull for his inherent kindness and simplicity, but he just loves the fields. He loves his wee donkey, loves his sister, he loves his best friend. In fact, he is a friend to all, human or otherwise. And more than anything, he loves a good chat. He loves a good pint. He loves good chat. And there's really nothing else to really do in this town other than drink and chat. Like read if you have the fortitude for sad novels. But Podrick is not really the reading type, and he's quite content with his life, while the other island dwellers, not so much. We got Restless Dominic, who seems much younger than he likely is. Like, every time I watch this film, like, I kind of walk away with thinking, like, I'm never really sure how old he is. Like, because he acts like a child, and everyone calls him a boy, but I'm like, I always pegged him as like young 20s. And which during that time is like, you're a man. I mean, even in this day and age, that's a full grown man there. But he's sort of this walking, talking personification of Freud's id. um, Sweet little Dominic. And his growth is kind of further arrested by all of these external factors that are kind of keeping him locked on this rock. And We got Podrick's former best friend, Cullum, who's getting older and he's thinking more about his legacy. And he starts musing, because he's like, I really want to compose my music and I really want to dedicate myself to that. And he starts like thinking, and musing, like, was Mozart nice? Did he have to sit here and listen to this banal chatting about donkey shit and stuff? It doesn't matter. Like, I suppose not, there is such thing as separating art from the artist. Um, and I do think that if you want to be great, whether that's in art, whether that is in any sort of field, whether that's being a civil rights leader, whether that's in athletics, no matter what, if you want to be great at something, that's going to have to come first. And everything else is going to have to come second. There will have to be sacrifices. And there's going to come a point where you're going to have to make that judgment call. You're going to have to think, is it this or is it that that's more important? And your priorities are going to come into play. So I very much feel like, yes. Does that mean that your contributions to the world in that field is invalidated because you weren't such a great person? No, not at all. Um, but does niceness not have an inherent worth, though? There are people and there's art. These are not separate things. These are fully enmeshed. There's not one without the other. If people were not there to make and appreciate, there is no art, you know? And I think what also separates us from our most base nature is human kindness. Without it, we'd murder the weak. We'd take whatever we wanted. We'd lie, we'd cheat, we'd steal, we'd assault with abandon. And of course, like people do these things now, but it isn't mere law that keeps everyone from doing these things, right? Not everyone is an antisocial psychopath, at least not in my worldview, even though I've met my fair share, like in a jokey way, but also like in a professional way. I've come across people with actually antisocial personality disorder. It's a very, very frightening disorder. So once you meet those people, you're like, yeah, no, that's not the whole world. Oh God, thank God it's not the whole world. Oh, woo. Talk about something that even freaks me out. It's like there's a chill. There's just like a chill that runs up your spine when you're talking to a person like that. It's just like, nah, that's actual bad news. That's an actual bad guy. But moving on, I think most people are decent enough, right? But it's rare to come across a Podrick. It really, really is. And I feel like people like him are shunned, not just like in the world at large, but definitely on Inisherin. And it's sort of like he's shunned and labeled as like stupid and discardable. Like, in order to be that nice, you got to be naive and an idiot. And it's like, what makes people feel this way? Is it self preservation? Is it easier than having to offer like an explanation for why you can't be that way? Because especially with the people on Inisherin, with all these goings on the island, like there's the Irish Civil War raging on in the background. The when the chicks, the Barley, is going on in the background of this film. You can hear the gunfire from the mainland, like throughout the film. Like characters are mentioning seeing it, and yet they've sequestered themselves from forming any opinion at all about it. Um, and it's funny because we got kind of this, um, very medical, metaphorical, and drinking my little Irish drink too much, I guess. So we got this very metaphorical, civil war, brother against brother going on with Colm and Podrick. And it's like, yeah, they might be two polar opposites, but they're on the same spectrum and they both care deeply just about different things. And Colin kind of sees like the only way to perfect his art is to remove himself from what he views as distractions. Um, and it takes him until the end of the film as he's humming his tune that he's created alone on the shores of Inisherin to understand that it takes living your life to be inspired by it. Like even though the artistic process is a lonely one, isolation is the very antithesis of creation. And we see this sort of regret in Cullum start to synthesize the day before when they're all at church. And he starts to really think like, without any sort of other perspective, without perspective, there's no thought. Like, it's just me thinking thoughts into the void of my own mind. And he starts to feel really bad about the accidental death of Jenny the donkey, the wee donkey. I This little drink that I made, I called the Jenny after Jenny the donkey, because it's basically an Irish mule, and she's kind of like an Irish mule, so I figured it worked. But Jenny the donkey, we love her. We all do, and it's just like too pure for this world, Jenny, and you weren't here. You just taken from us too soon. And this one is for you. Let's have a just a cheer and a moment of silence for Jenny the donkey. Mm, mm. Peace and prayers, Jenny the donkey. We love you. Um, and even Cullum is feeling bad about accidentally killing her. And with his fat fingers and god damn him, it's like Patrick was too nice. I would have immediately went to the pub and caught him on fire. I mean, that just it was so it's just like our little friend Jenny, and it's such a fucking sad scene. It like ruins my fucking day every time my fecking day. It ruins my fecking day every time I watch it. But it's not funny. It really does. It really does. It makes me cry every time because it's just like I feel like animal deaths are like the same as like when a child dies. It's just like there's just no reason for it. It's senseless. It feels like this ultimate innocent thing that I don't understand. Animals should live forever and they just don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve death. It's completely uncalled for. And the Jenny the donkey was completely uncalled for. I was enjoying the movie so much up until this point when I first saw it. And every time I'm always like, I should just fast forward through this scene. I can't do it. He's just sitting there and he's holding his donkey and it's just like, oh, it's just so real. Anyone who's lost anyone, but especially a pet, it's just like they're little friends and there's no way to really make sense of it, and then yeah, they're just this little body there and they're not inside anymore. um so it's like let's not break out into tears. Let's continue on. let's you know, yeah, let's do a British stiff upper lip here. Not, you know what? Fuck that though. We're not doing it. We're doing an Irish Inisherin upper lip tonight. Thank you. But Colin feels like especially really bad about this, and as he's at church, he's talking to the priest about it, and he's like, um, like basically the priest is like, do you think God cares about miniature donkeys? And dismayed Column's like, I fear he doesn't, and that's where it's all gone wrong. And I really do think it's how we treat those that matter little to our selfish desires is what really defines our character. Um, and I just fear like kindness in this way becomes nothing more than a mere transactional lip service. And I always fear more and more today that that's becoming truer and truer. I just feel like, it's really difficult. I think it's especially stark when you do the career field that I'm in. It's very everyone kind of considers themselves this sort of like I'm activism with it, and they say a lot of great things, but actually getting people to come out um for the hard stuff is an uphill battle. It's a little bit of a Sisyphusian task, I will say. Even though there's all this kindness and empathy, and we fight and we stand shoulder to shoulder, it's a lot of lip service. There's a lot of transactional lip service going on, and you find that more and more as you dedicate your life to it. As a mere humble saint dedicating your life to it, it can get a little bit frustrating sometimes. But and I just think too, it's like with Jenny the donkey. It's like is life really worth a damn if our little ones like Jenny the donkey don't mean anything? And I think that's something too that people really misunderstand about human animal bonds. It's like it's generally one sided. Like the love is really just a reflection of what you're putting into it. Um, and I think this is just like it is so prominent when Podrick is giving Jenny this proper burial, and he makes this little marker for her grave. Um, well, it's really tragic that Dominic, he gets nothing but this like frozen, forlorn um, burial, drowned in a lake. Um, and he can't even, in death, escape the confines for the expanse of the open sea in front of him. And through the act of making this film, I feel like Martin McDonagh has made Podrick's life into a monument of art. Like he memorializes and commemorates life in his own way just by existing. And they all do. All of the people in Inisherin do. And no one's gonna remember their names, and no one's gonna remember that that's a donkey. If you come there 100 years later, and if we were there right now, if Inisherin was a real place, and we saw Jenny's marker, you would have no idea there was a little wee donkey under there, but a skeleton now, a skeleton donkey, but a little wee donkey nonetheless, a really cute skeleton under there. I'd love to see it. I'm not gonna go desecrating a grave, but a little wee does, the donkey skeleton does sound pretty cute. Um, and, no one's gonna remember that though, right? It's like no one's gonna remember these people's names. No one's gonna remember that Jenny was a donkey, but to the people around them, it's like who made more of an impact? Was it Podrick, Jenny, Dominic, Siobhan, or fucking Mozart? you know? And look, this is not anti-art in any way, shape, or fucking form. Um, because obviously I'm doing these videos. I love art. I'm a huge fan. Huge fan of just art in general. I think I am though. Yeah, that sounds so stupid though, but I am. But you know what? Like, an art is a really like powerful expression of life, but so are our relationships. And turning your back on others is a choice you can certainly make. And Colin makes his argument is sound when he's like, you know what? Like people have turned their backs. They've been complete assholes, and we still all remember their name. But the thing that I would like to say to Colin is like, well, then you better commit and accept accountability for your own alienation. Once you've burned all of your bridges, there might not be any way back. Could this rift be repaired? It's similar to the question, like, yeah, could Colin's fingers be sewn back on? Maybe functionally, but it's never going to be the same. And the men on this island are so fucking feckin' affixed by their obsession with endurance and co-creating their own obstacles. Never transcending their miserable comforts ensures that things are never going to change. And maybe that's okay with Podrick. Like, he didn't seem miserable with the pint, his animals, and some good, honest chatting. It's not a bad way to live. But with Tom, as much as he doesn't want to admit this, his misery demands company. And after his self-imposed drama, he's finished his damn tune. He's opened the shorelines of Inisherin to the anguished howls of banshees. And he's left to actually sit with what he myopically failed to reflect on before. Which one's going to be my legacy? So there we have it, everybody. Two crushing films that will absolutely destroy your soul, but gift you with a beautiful meditation on the meaning of life in the most Irish way possible. I'll be back in part 2 with a more boisterous, raucous side of the Irish experience, but for now, live free or die with despair. Happy St. Patrick's Day.